The spit hit Rosa Martinez's cheek at exactly 6:47 in the morning. 23 years waiting tables. Never once late, never once complained, and this is what she gets: a 17-year-old kid in a $400 jacket watch worth more than her car, laughing while his spit slides down her face. The sound in Rosa's table went from morning bustle to absolute silence in the span of a heartbeat. Forks frozen halfway to mouths, coffee cups suspended in midair. Even the ancient jukebox seemed to choke on whatever Patsy Cline song it had been playing. Rosa stood there, one hand still holding the coffee pot, the other clutching a dish rag that had seen better days. Her face, weathered from 2 decades of double shifts in Montana winters, showed no shock. Just exhaustion, the kind that seeps into bones and makes a home there. Kyle Harrington leaned back in his red vinyl booth phone, pointed at Rosa, recording every second for whatever social media platform would make him feel important today. His 3 friends' carbon copies in expensive athleisure, all 17, and convinced the world owed them something. Laughed like this was the funniest thing they'd witnessed in their short, privileged lives. The watch on Kyle's wrist caught the fluorescent lighting. Rolex Submariner. $42,000 if the internet could be believed. Rosa knew because she'd looked it up once, curious what kind of timepiece cost more than her annual income. Behind the counter, partially hidden by the kitchen window, a small figure watched. Lily Martinez, 10 years old, dark hair pulled into twin braids her mother had woven before the sun came up. She wore a Marine's jacket 3 sizes too big, sleeves rolled up past her elbows, the name tape across the chest reading Martinez in faded black letters. Her hands gripped the stainless steel counter edge, knuckles white, face transforming from confusion to something harder, something that didn't belong on a child's face. Kyle's voice carried across the diner with the confidence of someone who'd never faced consequences. This is what happens when peasants can't do their jobs. $4 grand this jacket. $4 grand. And this, he gestured at the tiny coffee stain on his sleeve, barely visible. This is unacceptable. Rosa opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. She'd been here before. Different rich kids, same script. You apologize. You offer to pay for dry cleaning. You smile and nod and swallow whatever words are trying to claw their way up your throat because you have rent due and a daughter to feed and health insurance you can't afford but desperately need. So Rosa did what she always did. She started to apologize. I'm so sorry, Al. That's when Kyle spit on her. Not accidentally. Not a cough or a sneeze or any of the 100 ways saliva might escape someone's mouth through sheer biology. Deliberately. He pursed his lips, gathered saliva, and spit directly onto Rosa's face. The glob landed just below her left eye, thick, viscous, sliding down her cheek like some obscene tear. His friends howled, actual howling like wolves who'd just brought down prey. Kyle pointed his phone closer, zooming in on Rosa's face. Make sure you get this, he told his friend, holding a second phone. Hashtag when waitresses can't wait. Hashtag service industry fail. This is going to blow up. In the kitchen window, Lily's face had gone very still. The Marine's jacket she wore had belonged to her father. Staff Sergeant Miguel Martinez, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, killed in Helmand Province, Afghanistan, August 2019, by an improvised explosive device that turned a morning patrol into a funeral. Lily had been 5. She remembered her father's hands, calloused, gentle. The way he'd taught her to tie her shoes using bunny ears and tree loops. The way he'd sung her to sleep with half-remembered Spanish lullabies his own grandmother had taught him decades ago in a small village outside Guadalajara. She remembered the Marines who'd shown up at their door. The folded flag. Her mother's face collapsing inward like a building losing all structural support at once. And she remembered what her father had told her the last time she'd seen him before he'd deployed for his 4th tour. Real men protect people who can't protect themselves. That's what we do, mija. That's what it means to be brave. Lily pushed through the kitchen door. Rosa saw her coming, tried to shake her head, tried to mouth the word no, but Lily was already moving. 10 years old, 4'6", 93 pounds. She walked straight up to Kyle Harrington's booth. You don't talk to my mama like that. Her voice didn't shake, didn't waver. Just stated a fact simple and absolute as gravity. Kyle looked down at her, actually had to look down, which seemed to offend him on some fundamental level. What did you say? Lily lifted her chin. I said you don't talk to my mama like that. You apologize. Right now. The diner held its breath. Kyle's face shifted through several expressions: surprise, amusement, something darker. He stood up, towering over the small girl in the too big Marine's jacket. Or what? What are you going to do about it, you little? His hand came up, fast. Palm-open fingers spread, aimed at the side of Lily's face. Rosa screamed, and a different hand appeared. Larger, scarred across the knuckles, calloused from years of work that left permanent marks. It caught Kyle's wrist mid-swing, stopped it cold, held it suspended in the air like a judge's gavel that would never fall. The man attached to that hand stood 6'2", gray beard cropped military short, scar running down his left cheek, puckered and white, the kind that spoke of shrapnel and field hospitals and surgeries that saved lives but couldn't erase evidence. He wore a leather vest over a black t-shirt, jeans that had seen 1,000 miles of highway boots that could walk another 1,000. On his vest, over his heart, a patch Eagle Globe and Anchor, United States Marine Corps. Below it, smaller patches, Purple Heart, Bronze Star, Combat Action Ribbon. His eyes, pale blue, the color of winter sky, looked at Kyle Harrington with the kind of cold assessment that came from seeing men die and deciding in split seconds who deserved saving. When he spoke, his voice came out quiet, the kind of quiet that made everyone lean in to hear, the kind of quiet that promised violence if the volume had to increase. Son, you just made the worst mistake of your short, privileged life. Kyle tried to jerk his wrist free. Couldn't. The man's grip didn't budge. Didn't tighten, didn't loosen, just held implacable as stone. Kyle's face went through another series of expressions. Shock, anger, something that might have been fear if he'd had enough life experience to recognize it. You just assaulted a minor. I'm calling the cops. The diner door opened. Deputy Marcus Hill stepped inside, hand already moving toward his radio. 30 years of law enforcement training, reading the situation instantly. Older man in leather restraining teenager crowd, gathered tension thick enough to choke on. Marcus was 45. Blackfeet, born on the reservation up near Browning, worked his way through college on rodeo scholarships and summer construction jobs, joined the Pinewood Sheriff's Department 20 years ago when he still believed justice was something you could enforce with a badge. His daughter had leukemia, stage 3, $12,000 a month in treatment costs. Insurance covered 8. The Harrington family paid the other 4, had for 3 years now. Ever since Richard Harrington had pulled Marcus aside at a hospital fundraiser and made an offer that sounded like charity, but felt like chains. Marcus looked at Kyle Harrington, looked at the spit still glistening on Rosa Martinez's face, looked at the phone Kyle's friend was holding, still recording. Every instinct he'd ever had screamed at him to do the right thing. Every medical bill on his kitchen table whispered something else. What's going on here? The man in the leather vest released Kyle's wrist, raised both hands, palms out, non-threatening. Deputy, boy here spit on this lady, was about to strike her daughter. I intervened. That's all. Kyle immediately launched into his version, voice rising with each word. This psycho grabbed me, assaulted me. I want him arrested. My dad's lawyer is going to... Marcus held up a hand, looked at Rosa. Ma'am, you want to press charges? Rosa's eyes went to Lily, then to the calendar on the wall where bills were marked in red ink, then to Marcus, and something passed between them. The silent language of people who understood what it meant to owe debts that could never be paid off. No, sir. Just a misunderstanding. Marcus nodded slowly, looked at Lily, who was staring at him with an expression that made his chest tighten. Lily, go in the back. Lily didn't move. Her small hand reached out, found the man in the leather vest's hand, held it. My daddy said real men protect people who can't protect themselves. She looked directly at Marcus when she said it. Are you a real man? The question hung in the air like smoke from a gun that had already fired. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, felt something crack inside his chest right where his badge sat. Before he could respond, the man in the leather vest knelt, got down on both knees right there on the diner floor, so his eyes were level with Lily's. Up close, the scar on his face showed its full geography. Entry wound near his left temple, exit path, curving down to his jawline. The kind of wound that should have killed someone, but didn't leaving them to figure out what to do with the extra time they'd been given. His voice when he spoke to Lily lost all its hard edges. "You're the bravest person in this room. You know that." Lily's lower lip trembled, first sign of the fear she'd been holding back. "I'm scared." The man nodded. "Good. Fear means you're paying attention. My sergeant used to say courage isn't not being scared. It's being scared and doing it anyway." He reached up, unpinned something from his vest. A medal. Bronze star with a V device. The kind they gave for valor for doing something extraordinary under fire. He placed it in Lily's small hand, closed her fingers around it. "This belonged to a friend of mine, Danny Chen. He was brave like you." Lily looked at the medal, then at him. "Past tense. Past tense." Her eyes welled up. "I'm sorry your friend is past tense. My daddy's past tense too." The man's jaw tightened. Something moved behind his eyes, recognition, pain, understanding. "What happened?" "Afghanistan, IED, 2019. The numbers landed like artillery rounds. The man closed his eyes for just a moment, and when he opened them, they were wet. "Then you know, some debts can only be paid forward." Kyle's voice shattered the moment, still performatively outraged, still recording. "This is gold. Hashtag homeless vet defends trailer trash. My followers are going to..." The man stood, slowly. The quiet in his voice evaporated. "You should leave now." Kyle laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Or what? You'll hit me. Go ahead. My dad's lawyer will own whatever sad little life you have left." The man took one step forward. Just one. Kyle's voice actually cracked. I'm not afraid of you." The man's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "I've been to 3 wars, boy. Seen things that would make you soil those expensive pants. You really want to find out what I'm capable of." Kyle swung. Actual committed swing fist, cocked back, following through the kind of punch that worked on other rich kids who'd never been in a real fight. The man caught Kyle's fist midair. Didn't hit back. Didn't need to. Just held the fist squeezing, applying pressure to specific points between the knuckles where nerves clustered. Kyle's face went from red to white. "Ow, ow, ow, ow." Marcus moved between them, hand finally on his weapon. "That's enough. Everyone calm down." But nobody was calm. Rosa was crying silently, trying to wipe the spit off her face with the dish rag she'd been holding this entire time. Lily was clutching the Bronze Star medal like a talisman. Kyle's friends were backing toward the door, suddenly aware this wasn't going to end with viral video fame. And the man in the leather vest released Kyle's hand, stepped back, raised both hands again. "My apologies, deputy. Getting too old for this." Marcus looked at the man, really looked. Saw the combat patches, the age, the stillness that came from having already made peace with death. Something in Marcus's expression shifted. "You got a name, James Morrison. You from around here, Mr. Morrison?" "No, sir. Bike broke down about a mile up Highway 89. Just came in for coffee." Marcus glanced at the window, saw the Harley Davidson parked on the shoulder across the street. 1987 soft tail, black and chrome, the kind of bike that required constant maintenance and love, and probably had 1,000 stories embedded in its frame. "Bike trouble." "Yes, sir." "You planning on staying in Pinewood?" James glanced at Rosa, at Lily still holding his medal, at the half-drunk cup of coffee on the counter that smelled like motor oil, and something else, something that might have been home if he could remember what home smelled like anymore. "Wasn't planning on it, but..." James looked at Marcus. "But some things you don't plan." Kyle was on his phone now, texting frantically, probably to his father, probably composing some version of events that would arrive before the truth did. Marcus made a decision. "Mr. Morrison, I'm going to need you to come down to the station. Just to make a statement. Routine." It wasn't routine, and they both knew it. James nodded. "Of course, deputy." Lily's hand tightened on his. "Don't leave." James knelt again, eye level. "I have to, kiddo, but I'll be back." "Promise?" Something crossed his face, pain memory ghosts of every promise he'd ever broken. "I promise." He stood, let Marcus guide him toward the door. As they left, James touched his vest where the Bronze Star had been. The empty space felt heavier than the metal had. The door closed. Kyle and his friends followed seconds later, already uploading videos, crafting captions, spinning narratives. Rosa sank into the nearest booth, hands shaking so badly she had to fold them in her lap. Lily stood in the middle of the empty diner, holding a dead man's medal, wearing her dead father's jacket. Outside, a wind picked up, carrying the smell of sage and dust and the distant promise of snow, even though it was only September. 300 miles north in Great Falls, a 72-year-old man named Rev answered his phone. Iron Riders. Rev, it's preacher. Long silence. Then, Jesus, James, it's been what, 3 years? About that. You okay? James looked back at the diner at the small figure visible through the window. Not sure yet. Might need the brothers. Where are you? In Pinewood, Montana. Rev's voice sharpened. Harrington country. You know what you're walking into. Not yet. But I'm about to find out. They hung up. James climbed into the back of Marcus's patrol car, no handcuffs, because this was still technically voluntary, still technically cooperation. As Marcus drove, James watched Pinewood roll past the windows. Main Street with half its storefronts boarded up. Mining Museum closed, Historical Society sign faded and cracked. Veterans Memorial, the only thing that looked maintained, freshly mowed grass around it, flags flying even in the wind. The population sign read 8,200, but someone had spray painted over it, changed it to 7,100. Crossed out that number too, written 6,300 in dripping red letters. Marcus caught James looking. We used to be something. Copper mine employed 5,000 people at its peak. Then 2008 happened. Mine closed, people left. Those who stayed, he didn't finish. You stayed. Daughter's sick, can't move. James heard what Marcus wasn't saying. Heard it in the way his knuckles went white on the steering wheel, the way his jaw set. Harrington's paying for treatment. Marcus's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. You're a smart man, Mr. Morrison. Observant, not the same thing. What's the difference? Smart people make good choices. Observant people understand why other people make bad ones. Marcus drove in silence for half a mile. 3 years, he finally said. 3 years I've been looking the other way, telling myself it's for my daughter, that she needs me alive more than she needs me honest. She probably does. That make it right. James watched the landscape. Mountains in the distance, snow already dusting the peaks. Right and wrong aren't as clear as they tell you in the academy. You sound like you know. I do. Military was at the Marines, Force Recon, 3 tours, Iraq twice, Afghanistan once. Marcus whistled low. So you've seen some things. Some things. When they pulled up to the sheriff's station, single-story building, tan stucco, satellite dish on the roof, probably older than most of the deputies. Inside smelled like burnt coffee and old paperwork. Dispatcher behind bulletproof glass, 2 empty desks, 1 small holding cell visible through an interior window. Marcus sat James down, poured 2 cups of coffee that tasted like regret and chicory, started asking questions for the report. While they talked across town in an office that occupied the top floor of the only building in Pinewood, taller than 3 stories, Richard Harrington received 3 texts in rapid succession. First one from Kyle. Got assaulted by psycho vet at Rose's. Need lawyer now. Second one from his assistant, Sheriff's Department called. Your son was involved in altercation. Third one from a number he didn't have saved but recognized anyway. 72 hours, Mr. Harrington. Payment is due. Do you have our money? Richard stared at his phone. 42 years old. Self-made billionaire if you didn't count the $2 million in cartel loans he'd taken to cover losses from the 2022 real estate crash. Empire built on land development, mineral rights, political connections that stretched from Heleniso to Washington, D.C. He'd never worried about money before. Not when his father died and left him nothing. Not when he built his first subdivision at 25. Not through the 2008 collapse when he'd bought up foreclosed properties for pennies on the dollar. But 2 years ago, he'd made a bet, a big one. Commercial development, hospitality, crypto investments on the side. And then the market had shifted, rates had gone up, and suddenly $200 million in assets meant nothing when you couldn't make the loan payments. So he'd gone to people who didn't care about credit scores. People who measured debts in blood instead of dollars. $2 million borrowed. $4 million owed with interest. 72 hours left. Richard's office phone rang. His secretary, Mr. Harrington Hospital Administrator Chen, is online too. Says it's urgent. He picked up. Richard Harrington. Dr. Sarah Chen's voice came through tight and professional. Mr. Harrington, we need to discuss Rosa Martinez's medical situation. The waitress? Yes, she collapsed this morning, cardiac event. She needs emergency open heart surgery. And, pause, and she has no insurance. The surgery will cost approximately $200,000. Richard leaned back in his chair. Board policy is clear, Dr. Chen. We don't perform elective. This isn't elective. She'll die within 48 hours without intervention. Then she should have planned better, had insurance, made better life choices. Silence on the other end of the line. Then very quietly, you know, when I was a combat medic in Iraq, we didn't ask soldiers if they had insurance before we treated them. This isn't Iraq, Dr. Chen. No, it's worse. At least in Iraq, we were honest about who we were fighting. She hung up. Richard stared at his phone. Outside his window, pine woods spread out below him like a map he owned most of. 18 residential properties, 3 commercial buildings. The hospital board, the mayor's office, Marcus Hill's badge, all bought, all paid for. His phone buzzed. The cartel number again. Mr. Harrington, we grow impatient. Richard's hands shook slightly. I need more time. The voice on the other end laughed. You have exactly what we agreed on, 72 hours. After that, we begin removing your assets. We start with your son. You can't. We can, we will. Unless you'd prefer we start with you. Your liver is worth $200,000 on the right market. Your kidneys $300,000 for the pair. We can keep you alive for weeks while we harvest. It's very efficient. The line went dead. Richard sat in his leather chair, $18,000 Italian custom ordered, and felt something cold settle in his chest. His office door opened. Kyle stormed in, phone in hand, face red. Dad, you need to do something. That psycho at the diner. Not now, Kyle. But I said not now. Kyle stopped shocked. Richard never yelled. Dad, what's wrong? Richard looked at his son, 17 years old, trust fund, private school, every advantage money could buy, and absolutely no idea what it took to keep all of that intact. Nothing, it's fine. I'll handle the diner thing. You better. I've got like 50,000 followers watching my story. If you don't make this right, Kyle, go home. Kyle left muttering, still recording himself, probably turning this into content. Richard pulled up his contacts, found the number for Miguel Torres, his attorney. Before he could dial, his phone rang again. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him. Hello. Mr. Harrington, this is Sergeant Chen's widow, Rosa Martinez's daughter, Lily. I wanted to thank you for paying for my mother's. He hung up, sat very still, realized he'd just hung up on a 10-year-old girl calling to say thank you for money he hadn't given, for help he wouldn't provide, for a compassion that would cost exactly nothing but might save everything. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. Back at the sheriff's station, James finished giving his statement. Marcus looked over the paperwork, jaw working. You know, Kyle Harrington's father owns half this town. I gathered. So you understand this won't end here. I know. Marcus studied James across the desk. Why'd you do it? You don't know Rosa, don't know the girl, could have just walked away. James touched the empty spot on her vest where the Bronze Star had been. Because 12 men didn't walk away when I needed them. And because someone taught me that's what you do. And the friend you gave the medal to, Danny Chen, 22 years old, Fresno, California, corporal, died August 15th, 2006. Fallujah, held position covering our retreat, saved 9 lives, lost his. Marcus saw the way James's hands tightened on the coffee cup. You were his sergeant. I was his friend. Same thing in the Marines. Should be, doesn't always work that way. Marcus stood, poured himself more coffee he wouldn't drink. I've got a daughter, 12 years old. Leukemia, stage 3. James nodded. Harrington's money keeping her alive. $12,000 a month. Insurance won't cover it all. Been 3 years. So you're in the same trap as Rosa. Marcus's laugh came out bitter. Trap suggests there's a way out. James finished his coffee, stood. There's always a way out. Question is, what you're willing to pay for it. Marcus walked him to the door, then stopped. Mr. Morrison, James, whatever you're planning, don't. Harrington has connections, money, power. You're one guy with a broken bike and PTSD. James paused in the doorway, looked back. Maybe, but one guy is all it takes. He walked out into afternoon sun that felt colder than it should. His Harley sat where he'd left it, still dead still, refusing to start. He pulled out his phone. One missed call from Reverend, three missed calls from a number he didn't recognize, and one text from a contact labeled only Doc. Heard you're in Montana. Heard you're in trouble. What do you need? James stared at the message. Dr. Sarah Chen, combat medic, Iraq 2006. Same unit, same operation, same day. Danny Chen died. She'd been the one keeping the wounded alive while James held the perimeter. She'd been the one who'd cried when they'd finally made it back to base and done the count, and realized three men weren't coming back ever. She'd been the one who'd said at Danny's memorial that some debts could only be paid forward because you couldn't pay them back. James typed, in Pinewood, woman needs surgery, can't afford it, wondering if you're still in the business of saving people. Response came back in seconds. Same woman whose kid you gave Danny's medal to. How did you? Videos already online, 15 million views, you're famous. James closed his eyes. Didn't want famous. Too late. Shit do you need? Can you get to Pinewood? Already driving, be there in 4 hours. James put his phone away, looked at Rosa's table across the street, saw Lily's face pressed against the window, watching. She raised one small hand, waved. He waved back, and felt something shift in his chest, some tectonic plate that had been frozen for 3 years, suddenly remembering how to move. Maybe he could stay. Maybe this was where the running stopped. Maybe 12 Ghosts would finally let him rest if he saved one more life. Rosa's face appeared in the window beside Lily's. Then Rosa's knees buckled. James saw it happen in slow motion, the way her hand went to her chest, the way her face went gray, the way Lily's expression transformed from curious to terrified. He was running before Rosa hit the floor. Burst through the diner door as Lily screamed. Rosa on her back, gasping, eyes wide. Can't breathe, chest. James dropped to his knees, checked her pulse. Thready, fast, wrong. Lily, call 911 now. Lily grabbed the diner phone with shaking hands. James loosened Rosa's collar, elevated her feet with a chair cushion, talked to her in the calm voice you used when people were dying and panic would only speed things along. Stay with me, Rosa. Ambulance is coming. You're going to be fine. But her lips were turning blue, and James knew with the certainty of someone who'd seen this before that fine was a lie. Rosa's hand found his. Lily, she gasped. If I promise you're not going anywhere. Promise, I promise. Sirens in the distance getting closer. Rosa's eyes closed. Hey, no, stay with me. But she was gone, somewhere behind her eyelids where paramedics and promises couldn't reach. The ambulance doors slammed shut with Rosa inside, Lily climbing in behind her small hands, refusing to let go of her mother's pale fingers. James stood in the parking lot watching red lights disappear around the corner onto Highway 89, heading for Pinewood Community Hospital 3 miles north. His phone buzzed. Reverend, talk to me, preacher. James watched the ambulance vanish. Woman collapsed, heart. Daughter's 10 years old alone if the mother doesn't make it. Rev's voice went quiet in that particular way that meant he was already making decisions. What do you need? Don't know yet. Bullshit. You know, you always know. That's why they made you sergeant. James closed his eyes, felt September sun on his face, tried to remember the last time he'd asked anyone for help. Couldn't. I'll call you back. He hung up before Rev could argue. The Harley still sat dead on the shoulder. James walked to it, knelt, ran diagnostic checks he'd performed 10,000 times across 3 decades. Fuel line clear, battery charged, spark plugs firing. Should work. Wouldn't. Some machines knew when their riders needed to stay put. James gave up, left the bike, started walking toward the hospital. 3 miles in decent weather felt like nothing. He'd walked 60 in full gear through a rocky summer. This was Montana autumn, comfortable, almost pleasant, if you ignored the dread sitting in your chest like a stone. The hospital appeared after 40 minutes, low concrete building, newer wing grafted onto older bones, parking lot, half empty, even though it was mid-afternoon. Sign out front listed specialties: family medicine, emergency care, limited surgical services. That word, limited. Inside smelled like every hospital James had ever been in. Antiseptic, trying to cover something older, something that leaked through the floors from wherever they kept the real sickness hidden. Drosera Chen stood at the nurse's station writing on a tablet, black hair pulled back, white coat carrying the particular exhaustion that came from carrying other people's pain professionally. She looked up, saw James, dropped the tablet. Jesus Christ. Her voice came out strangled, half prayer, half accusation. James stopped 10 feet away, suddenly aware that 18 years was a long time to be someone's ghost. Sarah. She stared at him like he might disappear if she blinked. You're actually here, in Montana, after 3 years of radio silence. Bike broke down. Your bike? Yes. Just happened to break down outside the diner where a woman who needs emergency cardiac surgery works. Coincidence. Sarah's laugh had no humor in it. You don't believe in coincidence, neither do I. She moved from behind the desk, walked toward him, stopped just outside touching distance. Up close, James could see the years lines around her eyes that hadn't been there in a rock gray, threading through her hair. Something in her expression that spoke of too many patients lost and not enough saved. Danny's medal, she said. You gave it to the girl. Seemed right. That medal was supposed to go to his mother. His mother died 6 months after he did. Liver failure. She drank herself to death grieving him. Sarah flinched. I didn't know. I know, I was going to mail it to you. Couldn't figure out what to say in the note. They stood in awkward silence, broken only by hospital sounds, monitors beeping someone's television, too loud footsteps squeaking on linoleum. Sarah spoke first. Rosa Martinez needs open heart surgery, complete arterial blockage. Without intervention, she has maybe 48 hours. With intervention, good prognosis. 70% survival rate post-op. How much? 200,000. Minimum. She has no insurance. Hospital board won't approve charity care. Who's on the board? Sarah's expression answered before her words did. Richard Harrington chairs it. 3 other members, all connected to his businesses somehow. Contractor, real estate attorney, development consultant. So he owns them. He owns everything in this town that matters. James processed this, running through scenarios, options, angles. Can you perform the surgery if funding appears? Sarah's eyes narrowed. Where would funding appear from? Answer the question. Yes, I can do it. I'm qualified. Former combat surgeon, did my residency at Johns Hopkins, 5 years in private practice before I burned out and came here to hide. You're not hiding. Yes, I am. Same as you. James didn't argue because she was right. If I get the money, how fast can you operate? Within hours. But James, where are you going to get $200,000? He pulled out his phone, dialed Reverend Rev, answered on first ring. Changed your mind. Need the brotherhood, all chapters. 5 states if you can reach them. Silence. Then what are we doing? Saving a life. Whose does it matter? Another pause. No, I suppose it doesn't. How much time do we have? 48 hours before she dies. Less time than that before the clock becomes irrelevant. Understood. I'll make calls. Where should we converge? Pinewood, Main Street, dawn tomorrow. That's 15 hours from now. So start calling. Rev's voice shifted, took on the tone he used when speaking as president instead of friend. Preacher, you know what you're asking. How many brothers will need to raise that kind of money? I know. And you know they'll come because it's you asking. I know that too. Then I have one question. What? Are you finally ready to stop running? James looked at Sarah, who was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Maybe. Ask me tomorrow. He hung up. Sarah crossed her arms. What did you just do? Called in some debts. What kind of debts? Before James could answer, Lily appeared from the hallway leading to the emergency department. Her face was blotchy from crying, eyes red, but her expression held that particular determination James recognized from every young soldier who'd decided fear wasn't going to stop them. She walked straight to him, looked up. Mama's sleeping. The doctor said her heart is sick. Very sick. I know. They said she needs an operation that costs more money than we have. I know that too. Are you going to help? James knelt, getting to her eye level, the way he'd done in the diner. Yes, you promise. The word hit harder than it should have. Every promise he'd ever made came rushing back. Promises to Danny Chen's mother that her son wouldn't die alone. Promises to his squad that he'd get them home. Promises to himself that he'd stop failing people. I promise. Lily studied his face with unsettling intensity. You have sad eyes, like Mama after Daddy died. Sarah made a small sound, quickly suppressed. James nodded slowly. Lost some people I cared about. How many are 12, bum? Lily absorbed this. 12 is a lot. Yes. Were they your friends? They were my brothers. Like real brothers or Marine brothers. Both, that's how it works sometimes. Lily reached it into her pocket, pulled out the Bronze Star medal, held it out to him. You should keep this. It was your friend's. James gently pushed her hand back. Danny would want you to have it. You remind me of him. Brave even when you're scared. I'm very scared right now. I know. That's why you're brave. Sarah's hand touched James's shoulder. Lily, why don't you go sit with your mother? I need to talk to Mr. Morrison. Lily looked between them, seeming to sense something significant in the air, then nodded and walked back toward the emergency department. Once she was gone, Sarah spoke quietly. You can't save everyone, James. I know. Danny's death wasn't your fault. I know that too. Then why are you doing this? You don't owe these people anything. James stood, knees protesting slightly, reminder that 68 wasn't 28 no matter how much training you'd maintained. Because 12 men showed up for me when they didn't have to, and one of them died doing it. That creates a debt. A debt you've been trying to pay for 18 years. Some debts take time. Sarah looked at him for a long moment. The board meeting is at 7 tonight. Harrington will deny the funding request formally. After that, Rosa's case gets closed. No appeal? Then I have 7 hours. To do what? Change his mind. Sarah's expression shifted to something that might have been hope if hope hadn't learned better. Richard Harrington doesn't change his mind. He buys minds, breaks minds, but he doesn't change his. Everyone changes their mind when properly motivated. That sounds like a threat. It's an observation. James turned to leave, then stopped. Sarah, in Iraq, when we were pinned down and you were operating on Corporal Williams with mortars landing 200 yards out, you remember what you said? Sarah's face went distant, remembering. I said fear was just information, not an instruction. That's right. Fear tells you something's dangerous, doesn't tell you to run. Are you suggesting I should be afraid of Richard Harrington? I'm suggesting he should be afraid of us. James walked out before Sarah could respond. Outside, the afternoon had progressed toward evening, shadows lengthening. Temperature dropping. James pulled out his phone, checked the time. 3:15. The board meeting would convene in less than 4 hours. He started walking back toward Main Street, toward Rosa's table, toward his dead motorcycle, and whatever came next. Halfway there, a pickup truck pulled alongside him. Marcus Hill at the wheel window rolling down. Need a ride? James climbed in without answering. They drove in silence for half a mile before Marcus spoke. Heard about Rosa. Whole town's heard by now. That's how it works in places like this. Everyone knows everything 10 minutes after it happens. How's your daughter? Marcus's hands tightened on the wheel. Good days and bad days. Today's a good day. She's home eating solid food, keeping it down. Those are victories now. What's her name? Sophie, 12 years old, wants to be a veterinarian when she grows up. Loves horses, never met a horse in her life, but loves them from books. They pulled up outside Rosa's table. The diner was closed, lights off, chairs stacked on tables visible through the window. Marcus killed the engine but didn't move. I know what you're planning. James waited. Whatever it is, Marcus continued, it won't work. Harrington's untouchable in this town. You bring pressure, he'll make one call, and you'll have state police, maybe feds, crawling all over you. Maybe. Definitely. Then why are you warning me instead of preventing me? Marcus stared through the windshield at the empty diner. Because I'm tired. Tired of looking away. Tired of cashing checks from a man who treats people like Rosa, like my wife, like every working person in this town like garbage. I'm tired of being the kind of man my daughter will be ashamed of when she's old enough to understand what integrity means. James turned to look at him. What are you saying? Marcus met his eyes. I'm saying if you need help, ask. I can't promise I'll give it, but I can promise I'll think about it, which is more than I've done in 3 years. That's enough. Marcus nodded, then pulled something from his glove compartment. A business card, edges worn. My cell, personal, not the department number. Use it if you need to. James took the card, got out of the truck. Marcus rolled down the window again. James, one more thing. What? The Harringtons, they're not just rich, they're connected. Richard's brother-in-law is a state senator. His college roommate sits on the Ninth Circuit. His lawyer has gotten 3 murder charges dismissed in the last 5 years. You're walking into something bigger than one small-town board meeting. I've walked into worse. Maybe, but did you walk out? Marcus drove away before James could answer. James stood alone on Main Street as evening settled over Pinewood. Streetlights flickered on that particular orange glow that made everything look vaguely nostalgic and sad. A few cars passed. A woman walking her dog glanced at him nervously, then hurried along. His phone rang. Reverend status. Called in every marker I have from here to North Dakota. We'll have riders. Question is how many? Estimate? Conservative 300. Optimistic, maybe 800. I need more. Silence on the line. Preacher, 800 bikers descending on a town of 6,000 is already going to look like an invasion. What exactly are you planning a miracle? Jesus Christ, you sound like you did before Fallujah. Right before everything went sideways. This is different. How doing? This time nobody has to die. You hope. I hope. Rev cited the sound of a 72-year-old man who'd seen too much but couldn't stop caring. All right, I'll push harder. Call the chapters we haven't touched yet. Washington, Oregon, maybe. But James, even if we get 1,000 riders, we won't raise $200,000. Most of these guys are on fixed income, disability, Social Security. They'll give what they can, but I know, we'll figure it out. You keep saying that like you have a plan. I do. Care to share? Not yet. Stubborn bastard. Learn it from the best. Rev's voice softened. Danny would be proud of you. You know that, right? James felt his throat tighten. Danny would be alive if I'd made better calls. Danny made his own choices. We all did. That's what the Corps teaches you. Everyone's responsible for their own actions. You can't carry 12 men's worth of guilt forever. Watch me. James hung up before the conversation could continue. He walked to his Harley, sat on it, even though it wouldn't start, felt the familiar weight of the machine beneath him. 18 years he'd owned this bike, bought it with his discharge pay, and a loan he'd paid off in 6 months working construction. Every mile on the odometer represented a memory, good ones, bad ones, the kind that sat in between and just were. The bike smelled like motor oil and leather, and roads traveled. Like home, if home was something you carried with you instead of something you built. James's phone lit up with a text from Sarah. Board meeting moved up, 6 p.m. Harrington's pushing to close Rosa's case tonight. He checked the time, 5:17, 43 minutes. Another text arrived, this one from a number he didn't recognize. Mr. Morrison, this is Lily. I took the nurse's phone. Please save my mama. She's all I have. James stared at the message. 10 years old and already writing goodbye notes just in case. He'd seen that before. In Iraq. Kids who'd learned too early that the people you loved could disappear without warning. He typed back, your mama's going to be fine. I promise. Now give the nurse her phone back before you get in trouble. Response came immediately. Okay. The nurse says you're trouble. Are you trouble? James almost smiled. The best kind. He put his phone away, stood from the bike, started walking toward the only building in Pinewood taller than 3 stories. Harrington Development occupied floors 4 through 6 of what locals called the Tower, even though it was barely tall enough to qualify. James pushed through glass doors into a lobby decorated in expensive minimalism, marble, steel, abstract art that probably cost more than Rosa made in 5 years. Security guard at the desk looked up. 60s overweight, the kind of rent-a-cop who'd never been real police but wore the uniform like it meant something. Help you, James kept his voice polite. Here for the hospital board meeting. You on the list? No. Then you can't go up. It's a public hospital board. Meetings are open to the public. The guard's expression shifted from bored to annoyed. Public means residents can submit written comments. Doesn't mean anyone can walk in off the street. James pulled out his wallet, showed his Montana driver's license. Technically still valid, even though the address was 3 apartments ago. Resident. The guard studied the license, then James's face, then back to the license. This address is in Billings. I move around. Says here it expires in 2 months. Still valid today. They stared at each other. The guard reached for his radio. James's hand moved faster, not threatening, just present, resting on the desk between them. Sir, I don't want trouble. I just want to attend a public meeting about a woman who's going to die if someone doesn't help her. You going to stop me from doing that? The guard looked at James's hands, scarred knuckles, old burns, calluses, that came from decades of hard work. Then, at his face, weathered, determined, carrying the kind of stillness that came from being comfortable with violence, even if you'd prefer to avoid it. The guard made a decision. Meetings on 6, conference room B, elevators to your left. Thank you. James walked to the elevator, pressed the button for 6, rode up in silence, broken only by generic music that made him want to put his fist through the speaker. The doors opened onto a hallway decorated like the lobby, expensive, sterile, designed to intimidate. Conference room B was easy to find. Glass walls, 15 people inside. Richard Harrington at the head of a long table. James pushed open the door. Everyone turned. Richard's face went from confident to confused to angry in the space of 3 seconds. Who the hell are you? James stepped inside, closed the door gently. James Morrison, I'm here about Rosa Martinez's case. This is a closed meeting. Your security guard said it's public. He was mistaken. Then he should be fired for lying to the public. Is that what you want press coverage about, how you're preventing community input on life or death medical decisions? Richard's jaw tightened, but he gestured to an empty chair. You have 2 minutes. James remained standing. Rosa Martinez collapsed this afternoon. She needs emergency cardiac surgery, $200,000. Without it, she dies. Dr. Sarah Chen is willing to perform the operation. Hospital has the facilities. You have the authority to approve funding. I'm asking you to do it. Richard leaned back in his chair, expensive leather high back, the kind that cost more than Rosa's monthly rent. Mr. Morrison, this board has fiscal responsibilities. We can't approve she'll die. That's unfortunate, but we're not a charity. If Ms. Martinez wanted medical care, she should have purchased insurance. She works 16 hours a day and still can't afford insurance. The system's broken. Then perhaps she should have made better life choices. The room went very quiet. James felt something cold settle in his chest. The particular kind of anger that came from watching entitled people dismiss suffering like it was a budget line item. Better life choices, like being born to the right family, inheriting the right money, never having to choose between food and medicine. Richard's face flushed. I built everything I have from nothing. My father left me in debt. I worked my way up. Your father left you $3 million in real estate holdings and political connections that stretched to the governor's office. I looked you up. Don't pretend you're self-made when you started on third base. Someone at the table, older woman, hospital administrator, by her badge made a small sound that might have been agreement, quickly suppressed. Richard stood. This meeting is over. Security. James didn't move. Before I leave, I want everyone in this room to know something. Tomorrow morning, several hundred veterans are arriving in Pinewood. They're coming to raise money for Rosa Martinez's surgery. They're going to park on Main Street. They're going to tell anyone who'll listen about how this hospital, this board, this town, let a woman die because she couldn't afford to live. Every camera in Montana is going to be here. Every reporter, every politician looking for a story about health care and inequality and the failure of American compassion. Richard's face went from red to white. You're threatening me. I'm informing you, big difference. I'll have you arrested, Buya, for what? Planning a peaceful fundraiser, exercising free speech. Good luck with that. The door opened. 2 security guards entered. Richard pointed at James. Escort this man out. Ban him from the building. The guards moved forward. James raised his hands, non-threatening. Leaving voluntarily, but one more thing. He looked directly at Richard. Some debts can only be paid in blood. You might want to think about what you're willing to sacrifice before tomorrow comes. He walked out between the security guards, took the elevator down, exited the building into evening that had become full night. His phone buzzed with multiple texts. Rev confirmed 800 riders, still working on more. Sarah, board denied the funding. Rosa has 40 hours, maybe less. An unknown number. This is Deputy Hill. Whatever you said to Harrington, he's making calls. Watch your back. And finally, impossibly, a text from a number he thought he'd deleted years ago, but apparently his phone had saved. Frank Miller, his old FBI handler. Heard you're causing trouble in Montana. Call me. James stared at that last message for a long time. Then he called Rev instead. How fast can you get everyone here? They're already moving. We'll have riders arriving throughout the night. By dawn, Main Street will be wall-to-wall motorcycles. Good. James, what's the end game here? Even if we raise the money, and that's a big if, Harrington's going to come after you. Men like him don't forgive public humiliation. I know. And you're okay with that? James thought about Lily's text, about Rosa unconscious in a hospital bed, about 12 men who died 18 years ago, and the one who'd survived to carry their memory. I'm not okay with anything. Haven't been since 2006. But maybe that's the point. Maybe you don't get to be okay when other people are suffering and you have the ability to do something about it. That's very philosophical for a jarhead. Learned it from a sergeant who gave a shit. Danny, Rev was quiet for a moment. All right, we ride for Rosa. We ride for you. We ride because that's what brothers do. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Wait until this is over and we're not all in federal prison. They hung up. James walked back toward the hospital, needing to check on Rosa, needing to see Lily, needing to confirm with Sarah that everything was ready for whenever the money materialized. The streets were mostly empty now. Pinewood shut down early, had for years, ever since the mine closed, and people stopped having reasons to stay out late. James passed the Veterans Memorial granite wall with names etched in gold dates stretching from World War I through Afghanistan. Someone had left fresh flowers. Someone always did. He stopped read the names, found 3 from Operation Iraqi Freedom. None he recognized, but he recognized the dates: 2003, 2004, 2006. That last date, always that date. A car pulled up beside him. Black SUV, tinted windows expensive. The back window rolled down. Kyle Harrington stared out, phone in hand, recording. You're that psycho from the diner. James didn't respond. My dad's going to destroy you. You know that, right? He's already calling the state police. Says you threatened him. I informed him of upcoming events. That's a threat. No, a threat is what happens when someone doesn't listen to information. Kyle's face twisted into something ugly. You think you're tough. You think some washed-up Marine with PTSD can stand up to my family? We own this town. We own the sheriff. We own everything that matters. James turned to face the SUV directly. You don't own dignity. You don't own courage. And you sure as hell don't own Rosa Martinez's right to live. She doesn't have a right to live if she can't pay for it. The words hung in the night air, recorded on Kyle's phone, preserved forever in digital memory. James felt his hands tighten into fists, forced them to relax. You know what's sad? You actually believe that. You've been raised to think human life has a price tag. That's what your father taught you when he spat on people with his money instead of showing mercy. My dad never. Your dad taught you by example, and now you're just like him. Congratulations. You've inherited every mistake he ever made. The SUV window rolled up. The vehicle sped away, tires squealing slightly on pavement. James stood alone under streetlights, feeling older than 68, feeling the weight of every year and every choice. His phone rang. Sarah. Where are you, Bargum? Walking back to the hospital. Don't. Come to my place instead. We need to talk. She gave him an address on the north edge of town, said she'd leave the porch light on. James changed direction, walked for 20 minutes through residential neighborhoods where houses got smaller and lawns got bigger, where the American dream looked like it had arrived 40 years ago and never bothered to update. Sarah's house was a small ranch, maybe 1,200 square feet, paint-fading garden, overgrown but cared for. Light on the porch as promised. She opened the door before he knocked. Come in. Inside smelled like coffee and old books, furniture worn but comfortable. Photos on the walls, Sarah in combat gear. Sarah with other soldiers, Sarah receiving some award James couldn't quite make out. In one photo that stopped him cold. Group shot, Iraq, 2006, 12 men and 1 woman. James recognized every face. Sarah saw him staring. I couldn't throw it away. Tried. Every time I packed to move, I'd tell myself this was it. This was the time to let go, and every time I'd unpack it in the new place. James couldn't look away from Danny Chen's face. 22 years old, smiling, alive. He looks happy. That was before the patrol, before everything went wrong. They stood in silence. Sarah spoke first. The board meeting. You really threatened Richard Harrington. I informed him. Same thing in his mind. He's already called the state police, the sheriff, probably the governor. By tomorrow morning, Pinewood will have law enforcement crawling all over it. Good. More witnesses. Witnesses to what? To whatever happens next. Sarah moved to the kitchen, poured 2 cups of coffee, without asking if James wanted any. He took it, tasted it. Good. Strong, the kind you made when you needed to stay awake through incoming mortars. James, I need you to understand something. Harrington's not just rich, he's connected. His lawyer got a murder charge dismissed last year because the key witness suddenly developed amnesia. His brother-in-law got a casino approved on protected land after 5 senators mysteriously changed their votes. These aren't people you want as enemies. Too late for that? Then at least have a plan. James set down the coffee. The plan is simple. We raise $200,000. You perform the surgery. Rosa lives. End of story. And if Harrington interferes, he won't. How can you be so sure? Because by the time the sun comes up tomorrow, he'll have bigger problems than one dying waitress. Sarah studied him across the small kitchen. You're planning something beyond a fundraiser. James didn't answer. Please tell me you're not going to do anything illegal. I'm not going to do anything illegal. But you're going to do something. I'm going to make sure justice happens. Sometimes that requires creativity. Sarah's phone buzzed. She checked it, face going pale. Rosa's vitals are declining. They're moving her to ICU. If she doesn't get surgery within 36 hours, she didn't finish. James felt time compressing, felt the particular pressure that came when missions had deadlines measured in hours instead of days. Call your surgical team. Tell them to be ready at dawn. James, we don't have the money. We will. How, Faith? Sarah laughed, no humor. Faith, you're asking me to trust that 800 bikers will raise $200,000 overnight. Not asking you to trust them. Asking you to trust me. Their eyes met. Sarah's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. The last time I trusted you, Danny died. The words hit like bullets. James took the impact, didn't flinch. I know, and if I could trade places with him, I would. But I can't. All I can do is try to make sure his death meant something. That every life I save from here forward counts toward whatever karmic debt I owe the universe. That's a lot of deaths to make up for. 12. I count them every night before I sleep. 12 men who should be here instead of me. Sarah's eyes went wet. You know what Danny said right before the patrol? James shook his head. He said he was glad you were his sergeant. Said if anything went wrong, you'd get them home. And he was right, you got 9 of them home. 3 didn't make it, but 9 did. That's a 75% success rate. In combat, that's extraordinary. Tell that to the 25%. They'd tell you the same thing I'm about to. You don't get to carry guilt for other people's choices. Danny chose to hold that position. Corporal Williams chose to run back for the wounded. Private First Class Rodriguez chose to cover the retreat. They made those choices as Marines, as men, as brothers. You dishonor them by pretending they didn't have agency. James felt something crack in his chest. 36 hours until Rosa died. 18 years since Danny had. And somehow those 2 numbers felt connected in ways James couldn't articulate. Sarah reached across the small kitchen table, covered his scarred hand with her smaller one. Save Rosa, not because it'll bring Danny back, not because it'll erase the guilt. Save her because she deserves to live and because you have the ability to make that happen. That's enough. That has to be enough. James turned his hand over, held hers. Thank you. For what? For still believing I'm worth saving. Sarah squeezed his hand once, then let go. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. James stood to leave, then paused at the door. Sarah, when this is over, if this works, will you stay in Pinewood? She considered. I don't know. Depends on what happens at tomorrow. Depends on whether I still have a medical license when the dust settles. Fair enough. He walked out into night that had gone truly dark, stars visible in ways they never were in cities. The Milky Way, a bright slash across black sky. His phone lit up with a text. Rev just passed through Great Falls. 200 bikes behind me. More joining from side roads. James, this is becoming something bigger than a fundraiser. It feels like... James waited. Another text, it feels like war. James typed back, not war, justice. Then he walked toward Main Street where his dead motorcycle waited, where tomorrow morning 2,000 veterans would converge, where Richard Harrington would learn what happened when you pushed men who'd already lost everything and therefore had nothing left to fear. The night air smelled like sage and coming snow. James breathed it in, felt something shift, felt like maybe for the first time in 18 years he was exactly where he needed to be, doing exactly what Danny would have wanted, paying forward a debt that could never be paid back. Above him, stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, indifferent to human drama, constant as the laws that govern them. James stopped in the middle of Main Street, empty and quiet and waiting for dawn. Tomorrow would bring chaos. Tonight there was only this standing under stars, breathing cold air, preparing for whatever came next. Ready. For the first time in a very long time. Ready. Word count 5043 words. Structure chapter 3. Complete chapter 4 opening. Nested loops. AF opened it, preparing for C close and D. Escalation. Prophecies 3 more planted. Stakes doubled from personal to community. Next part 3. Brotherhood arrives climax sequence. Dawn arrived with the rumble. James heard it first, low-frequency vibration traveling through asphalt into boot soles, subtle as distant thunder. Except thunder didn't last 20 minutes and grow steadily louder. He stood on Main Street where he'd been standing since 4 a.m. watching the eastern horizon lighten from black to purple to that particular shade of blue that promised clear skies and difficult choices. The rumble grew. One headlight appeared on Highway 89. Then 10, then 50. Then the horizon became nothing but light stretching back as far as James could see, a river of chrome and steel flowing toward Pinewood with the inevitability of floodwater. Rev's voice crackled through James's phone. Coming in hot, preacher. Hope this town's ready. James watched the lead bikes enter Main Street. Rev, at point massive Road King, gleaming even in pre-dawn light, flanked by 2 other riders in tight formation. Behind them, the flood. Motorcycles filled Main Street, 4 abreast engines synchronized into a sound that wasn't quite music but held the same hypnotic power. Harleys, mostly Softails, Dynas Road, King's Electra Glides, but also Victory's Indians. A few BMWs from riders who'd served in different eras under different flags, but shared the same fundamental understanding about what brotherhood meant. Average age pushing 65. Every single rider a veteran. They kept coming. 500 bikes became 700, became 1,000, became 1,500. Store owners emerged onto sidewalks, shocked expressions mirroring each other. One woman pulled out her phone, started recording. Within seconds, dozens of phones appeared, capturing the impossible sight of an army descending on a town that had forgotten what power looked like. The bikes parked in formation, military precision, each rider knowing exactly where to position, what spacing to maintain. They'd done this before at rallies and funerals and benefits, but never at this scale, never with this purpose. By 6:15 a.m., Main Street held 2,300 motorcycles and the riders who'd brought them. Silence fell sudden, absolute. Then Rev's voice cut through it. Brothers, sisters, we ride today for Rosa Martinez. The crowd roared. Rev stood on a flatbed truck someone had positioned overnight. Marcus Hill's handiwork, confirmed by the deputy standing nearby, no longer hiding which side he'd chosen. Rosa Martinez worked honest her whole life. Waited tables 16 hours a day, never asked for handouts. And yesterday her heart quit because this system decided her life wasn't worth saving. The crowd's energy shifted, anger mixing with purpose. So we're gonna show this town what brotherhood means. We're gonna raise $200,000, and we're gonna prove that working people deserve dignity, that service matters, that nobody gets left behind. 2,000 voices answered as one. The fundraising began. Buckets appeared, passed hand to hand through the crowd. Bills filled them, 20s, 50s, occasionally hundreds. One elderly rider removed his wedding ring, dropped it in. Another pulled off his Purple Heart medal, kissed it once, let it fall among the cash. James moved through the crowd, shaking hands, accepting embraces, hearing stories. A woman with gray braids and Air Force patches told him about her daughter who died from preventable cancer because insurance wouldn't cover experimental treatment. A man missing his left leg below the knee explained how VA benefits barely covered rent, but he'd brought $200 anyway because Rose's story was everyone's story. Rev jogged over, tablet in hand, checking running totals. 78,000, climbing fast. Sarah appeared at James's elbow, face stunned. There must be 2,000 people here. 2,300 last count. How did you? Didn't. They did. Brotherhood's like that. You light one match, suddenly you've got a forest fire. More riders came forward with offerings that transcended money. Vintage patches worth thousands to collectors. Original unit insignias from Korea. Family heirlooms carried through generations. One woman offered her father's flag, the one presented at his funeral, folded triangle never opened in 40 years. A man in his 70s approached holding something wrapped in cloth. This was my father's. World War II, Bronze Star II, Purple Heart's Distinguished Service Cross. He'd want Rosa to have them. James took the cloth bundle, felt the weight of history in his hands. Sir, I can't. You can, you will. Sell them, use the money. My father would have done the same. Rev worked his tablet, frantically contacting auction houses, collectors, anyone who'd pay cash immediately for military memorabilia. By 7:30 a.m., the tally board read $135,000. Then a woman's scream cut through the morning. James turned, saw Lily running down Main Street, hospital gown, flapping bare feet, slapping pavement. She reached him, grabbed his vest, face panicked. Mama's worse. The doctors said, Sarah was already moving and pulling out her phone. How much worse? She stopped breathing. They got her breathing again, but Dr. Chen said, Sarah's phone connected. This is Dr. Chen. Put me through to ICU. Now. She listened, face draining of color. Get the OR prepped. I don't care about authorization. I'll take full responsibility. Move. She hung up, looked at James. Cardiac arrest at 7:18 a.m. They resuscitated, but she's unstable. If we don't operate within the hour, there won't be anything left to save. James turned to Rever. How much money? 138,000. Not enough. I know. The crowd had gone quiet, sensing crisis. James climbed onto the flatbed truck, voice carrying across 2,000 people without needing amplification. Rosa Martinez went into cardiac arrest 20 minutes ago. We have 1 hour to raise the remaining money or she dies. Everything you've got. Empty your wallet. Call everyone you know. We will not let this woman die because we came up short. The response was immediate, almost violent in its intensity. Riders pulled out phones, called family, called friends, called other chapters not present. Money poured in faster now, desperate. 8:17 a.m., $153,000. 47,000, short. Rev looked at James, calculation in his eyes. We're not going to make it in time. Even liquidating the memorabilia takes hours. A voice cut through the crowd. I'll cover the rest. Everyone turned. Richard Harrington stood at the edge of the gathering, suit already rumpled at 8 a.m., face carrying the particular exhaustion of someone who'd spent the night making impossible choices. He walked through the parted crowd toward the flatbed truck. James helped him climb up. Richard faced 2,000 hostile eyes. His voice cracked. I made a mistake, a serious one. I let policy blind me to compassion. Rosa Martinez deserves to live. Everyone deserves access to health care. He pulled a checkbook from his jacket, hands shaking slightly, and wrote, $47,000 to reach exactly 200,000. He handed the check to Rev, who examined it, nodded. Richard continued, voice steadying. My son said something that shamed me. He said people don't have a right to live if they can't pay. I realize now I taught him that. Through my actions, through my choices. That ends today. Lily was suddenly beside the truck, Sarah lifting her up onto the platform. She stood in front of Richard and extended her small hand. Thank you for saving my mama. Richard looked at that hand, and something in his face crumbled. He knelt, massive man in expensive Aten, getting down on the truck bed, and took Lily's hand. I'm sorry for everything. Your mother's going to be fine. Lily studied him with 10-year-old directness. Do you mean it? Or are you just saying words? I mean it. The crowd began to clap, slow at first, then building not quite approval but acknowledgement that change had to start somewhere. Sarah's phone rang. "We need to move Rosa to surgery. Now. 8:30 a.m. is our window." James nodded to Rev, who signaled the crowd. "Brothers, clear a path to the hospital." 2,000 bikers parted like a sea, creating a corridor from Main Street to Pinewood Community Hospital. An ambulance appeared, Marcus at the wheel lights flashing. Rosa inside unconscious, hanging on by threads. The ambulance drove slowly through the corridor of motorcycles, veterans saluting as it passed. 8:41 a.m. Rosa Martinez wheeled into operating room 3. Dr. Sarah Chen scrubbed in her surgical team, moving with practiced efficiency around her. James stood in the observation gallery, with Lily watching through glass as Sarah made the first incision. Lily's hand found his held tight. "Is Mama going to die?" James knelt, this ritual between them now established as sacred. "Your mama's a fighter. You know how I know, because she raised you. And you're the bravest person I've met in 18 years. You keep saying that because it keeps being true." The surgery took 4 hours. James and Lily never left the gallery. Rev brought coffee James didn't drink, and juice Lily couldn't finish. Richard appeared at some point, stood at the back haulant, watching his money save a life instead of end one. At 12:53 p.m., Sarah stepped back from the operating table. "Bypass complete. Removing clamps. Heart should resume normal function in 3, 2, 1. Rosa's heart, repaired and reinforced, began beating with steady rhythm. The monitors registered strong, regular pulses. Sarah's voice stayed professional, but her hands shook slightly as she peeled off blood-stained gloves. "She's going to make it." In the observation gallery, Lily made a sound between laugh and sob. James pulled her close, felt something unlock in his chest that had been welded shut since Danny Chen died 18 years ago. Sarah emerged from the OR 20 minutes later, found them in the waiting area. "Surgery successful. Rosa's stable. She'll need months of recovery, but she's going to live." Lily launched herself at Sarah, who caught her, held her. Over the girl's head, Sarah looked at James with an expression that said everything words couldn't. "We did it. We saved one. Maybe that's enough." But the day wasn't finished. At 1:47 p.m., Richard's phone rang. He answered on speaker, hands shaking. "Mr. Harrington?" The voice was smooth-accented, carrying the particular calm of someone comfortable with violence. "We have your son. You have until 6 p.m. to deliver our money. $2 million. Cash." Richard's face went gray. "I don't have." "Then we begin removing parts. Fingers first. We will text you a location. Come alone. No police, or we mail you pieces for 3 weeks." The line went dead. Richard stood frozen. James took the phone, forwarded the incoming text to Rev's number. "When they send the location, we mobilize." They said no police. "We're not police, we're concerned citizens." The text arrived at 2:03 p.m., an address on the outskirts of Pinewood. Old mining equipment, storage of facility abandoned since 2008. Rev was already coordinating. 3 groups. Group A, 50 bikes visible patrol on Highway 89, non-threatening. Group B, 200 bikes surrounding facility from distance, hidden positions. Group C, 50 on foot, infiltration team, ex-special forces only. James looked at Richard. "You're going to make the exchange. Alone, like they said, but you won't be alone. And if they find your people, they won't." Marcus appeared now in plainclothes badge, conspicuously absent. "State police are standing by. I called in favors. They'll move on my signal, not before." "You're risking your career," Richard said. "Already lost. I resigned an hour ago, signed with FBI Anti-Cartel Task Force. First assignment, Pinewood. Loop C closing. Marcus's redemption arc complete." By 4 p.m., everyone was in position. James crouched in scrub brush 200 yards from the mining facility, binoculars trained on the entrance. Kyle was visible through a window, tied to a chair, face bruised, but alive. 4 men inside that James could count. Probably more. His radio crackled. Rev's voice, 57 bikes hidden in Gully West, 53 positioned North Ridge, 48 covering southern approach. Group C, 22 personnel on foot staging an abandoned equipment yard. Roger, hold positions until signal. James checked his watch, 5:47 p.m., 13 minutes until deadline. Richard's Mercedes appeared on the access road, driving slowly alone. James watched Richard park, exit the vehicle, walk toward the facility entrance, carrying an empty duffel bag because he didn't have $2 million, and everyone knew it. The door opened. Richard stepped inside. James keyed his radio. All units stand by. Do not engage unless I give signal. Through the binoculars, James watched the confrontation unfold inside. Kyle crying, trying to speak through a gag. Richard pleading, hands raised. And then a figure James hadn't expected stepped into view. Tall, lean, distinctive scar running from left eye to corner of mouth. Diego the Reaper Cruz. 18 years since James had seen that face, but some things burned into memory and stayed there. Iraq, Fallujah, 2006. The operation that had killed Danny Chen. Diego had been there, cartel enforcer embedded with insurgents, selling weapons, training fighters. James had been hunting him for weeks. They'd locked eyes across a courtyard 30 seconds before the ambush that killed 3 Marines. Diego had smiled then, just like he was smiling now. James's hand tightened on the radio. This wasn't just about money or business. This was personal. Diego's voice carried through the window, faint but audible. Mr. Harrington, you understand your position. I don't have the money, but I can get it. Give me more time. No more time. You had 3 years to pay. Now we collect. Diego produced a knife curved wicked, the kind designed for specific purposes. We start with your son's fingers, then hands, then maw. Wait, Richard's voice cracked. Take me instead. Let him go. He's 17, Diego laughed. Noble. But economics don't care about nobility. You owe us. We take payment. Richard did something James didn't expect. He charged, unarmed, untrained, middle-aged billionaire throwing himself at a professional killer. Diego sidestepped, easily brought the knife around. But Richard wasn't trying to fight. He was trying to reach Kyle. The knife caught Richard in the shoulder, deep arterial. Blood sprayed. Richard collapsed. James keyed the radio. All units engage. Repeat, engage now. The world exploded into motion. 200 motorcycles roared from hidden positions, converging on the facility from 4 directions. 22 ex-Special Forces operators breached 3 entrances simultaneously. State police vehicles screamed up the access road, Marcus leading. James was already moving rifle he'd borrowed from Rev's truck, shouldered, advancing on the facility. Inside, chaos. Diego's men tried to fight, but they were drug enforcers facing combat veterans. The outcome was inevitable. James entered through the south window, dropped 2 hostiles with precision shots aimed for legs, disabling, not killing, and reached Kyle. Cut the kid's bonds. Can you walk? Kyle nodded, terrified, covered in his father's blood. Go, out the door, run toward the police. Kyle ran. James turned. Diego stood over Richard's body knife, still bloody face twisted in rage. Razor. The nickname hit James like a physical blow. You remember, Diego said. Good. I wanted you to remember before I killed you. Fallujah, James said. You set up that ambush. Corporal Chen died because of you. Many people died because of me. I don't keep count. Diego lunged, fast-trained, lethal. James parried with his rifle barrel, deflected the knife, countered with a strike to Diego's throat. They fought like professionals. No wasted motion, no hesitation, just violence refined by decades of practice. Diego got inside James's guard knife, scoring a line across ribs. James drove his elbow into Diego's face, felt cartilage crunch. They grappled, crashed through a table, rolled apart. Both bleeding now, both breathing hard. Diego reached for a drop-in pistol. James was faster, single shot. Diego's hand, the one holding the gun, it exploded in red mist. He screamed, clutched the ruined appendage. You destroyed everything, Diego gasped. My organization, my reputation. 18 years I've rebuilt. And you appear and ruin it again. James stood over him, rifle aimed at center mass. Danny Chen. Remember that name? That's who you killed. He had a mother who loved him, friends who needed him, and I promised to bring him home. So kill me. Finish it. James lowered the rifle. No, you get to live in a cell, thinking about every life you destroyed. That's justice. Marcus burst through the door, state police behind him, weapons drawn. James, you good. Good. Secure the prisoner. James walked out, found Richard on the ground. Kyle kneeling beside him, pressing hands against the shoulder wound. Too much blood, too fast. James dropped beside them, added his hands to Kyle's. Richard, stay with me. Richard's eyes focused on James with difficulty. Is Kyle He's fine, he's right here. Richard's hand found his son's. I'm sorry for everything, for teaching you wrong, for Dad don't talk. Help's coming. Kyle. Richard's voice was fading. Be better than me. Treat people with dignity. They deserve. His eyes closed. Paramedics arrived, took over, worked frantically. But James had seen enough combat casualties to recognize the signs. Richard Harrington died at 6:37 p.m. in the parking lot of an abandoned mining facility, saving his son's life. Some debts can only be paid in blood. Prophecy fulfilled. 3 days later, James stood in Pinewood Community Hospital beside Rosa Martinez's bed. She was awake now, weak but improving color returning to her face. Lily sat in the chair beside the bed, holding her mother's hand, wearing her father's Marines jacket and Danny Chen's Bronze Star medal. You kept your promise, Rosa said, voice rough from intubation. Had help. James gestured to the window where Rev and 30 other bikers waited outside, maintaining vigil. More than help, you gave us back our lives. Sarah entered, checking vitals, adjusting medications. Another week of recovery, then physical therapy for 3 months. But you're going to be fine. Rosa's eyes went wet. I can't pay, already paid, Sarah said. Rosa Martinez Emergency Fund, anonymous donor. Everyone knew it was Richard Harrington's final gift, but nobody said it aloud. James walked Sarah into the hallway. How are you, she asked. Tired. That's not what I meant. James touched the spot on his vest where Danny Chen's Bronze Star had been. 18 years I've been carrying 12 ghosts. Today it feels like maybe 11. Progress. Sarah's eyes shimmered. Danny would be proud of you. You know that, right? Maybe. Definitely. James felt something crack in his chest, the final wall he'd built around grief and guilt. His eyes went wet. Sarah pulled him into an embrace, held him while he finally, for the first time since 2006, let himself cry. Not sobbing, not breaking, just tears he couldn't stop. Loop B, closing James's guilt, released. Sarah held him and whispered, It's okay. Real men cry when something matters. In the hospital chapel, a small private service was held for Richard Harrington. Kyle sat in the front row, face hollow, suit borrowed too big. James attended, standing in back, paying respects to a complicated man who'd made terrible choices and one good one. The pastor spoke about redemption, about how it's never too late to change course. After Kyle approached James, my father, his voice broke, he died because of me. He died protecting you. Big difference. I don't deserve, maybe not, but that's the point. Grace isn't about deserving. It's about being given something anyway. Kyle nodded, lost swimming in consequences. What do I do now? You honor his sacrifice. You become the man he wanted you to be. You treat people, the all people, with dignity. I don't know how. You learn, starting with an apology. Kyle found Rosa's room, knocked hesitantly. Lily answered. Kyle looked at the 10-year-old girl he'd bullied, terrorized, whose mother he'd mocked. I'm sorry for everything, for the spit, for the cruelty, for, his voice broke, for being the person I was. Lily studied him. Do you mean it? Yes. Good, because bad people don't say thank you. They just take. Kyle nodded. I want to work at your mom's diner. For free for a year to make up for, to learn, Lily corrected. You can't make up for it, but you can learn to be better. To learn to be better, Kyle repeated. Loop D, closing Richard's sacrifice complete, Kyle's redemption beginning. 1 week later, a press conference was held in Pinewood Town Hall. Every major news outlet in Montana attended, some national coverage. The stage held Rosa Martinez in a wheelchair, Lily beside her, Kyle Harrington, standing to the side, and a representative from the Harrington estate, the attorney who'd been in Richard's office. The attorney spoke first. Richard Harrington's final instructions were clear. $5 million from his estate will establish the Rosa Martinez Emergency Healthcare Fund. Any Pinewood resident requiring emergency medical care will receive it regardless of ability to pay. Applause. Additionally, Mr. Harrington's shares in Pinewood Community Hospital have been donated to a community trust. The board will be restructured to include actual community members, teachers, veterans, service workers. More applause. Kyle stepped to the microphone, hands shaking. My father was complicated. He made mistakes, hurt people. But in the end, he remembered what mattered. I'm committing to honor that. I'll be working at Rosa's table for the next year, learning, trying to be better than I was. The press asked questions. Rosa answered, some voice still weak but clear. We don't need heroes. We need systems that treat people like they matter. Healthcare shouldn't depend on billionaires' guilt. It should be a right. Someone asked James, standing in back, trying to be invisible, for comment. He declined at first. Rev pushed him forward. Reluctantly, James approached the microphone. I'm nobody special, just a Marine who couldn't save everyone he tried to save. But maybe that's the point. We're all just people trying to save each other. Sometimes we fail, sometimes we succeed. What matters is we keep trying. The crowd applauded. Sarah caught his eye from the audience, smiled. Marcus stood beside her badge, replaced by FBI credentials. Rev gave a thumbs up. And Lily looked at James with an expression that said, thank you, better than words ever could. 2 weeks after the press conference, James received a call, a gravelly voice he hadn't heard in years. Preacher, it's Frank Miller, your old FBI handler. Frank, thought you were retired. Was, then Pinewood happened. Now everyone wants to know how one washed-up Marine dismantled a Sinaloa cartel operation and saved a town. Didn't. Brotherhood did. Semantics. Listen, I have a proposition. FBI needs consultants. People who know how to operate in gray areas. You interested? James looked around the small apartment above the garage he'd been renting month to month for 2 years. I don't know, I might be staying put for a while. Pinewood. Yeah. Domestic roots. Never thought I'd see the day. She must be special. She's 10 years old and wears her dead father's jacket. Silence. Then, I understand. Call if you change your mind. James hung up, walked downstairs to Rosa's table where he'd been eating dinner every night since Rosa came home from the hospital. Lily saw him enter, waved from behind the counter. Kyle brought him coffee, learning to serve instead of be served. Rosa emerged from the kitchen, moving slowly but moving. Table 9, she said. Reserved. James sat at the table that had belonged to Rosa's husband, the Vietnam vet who'd never come home the same. The table now held 2 roses, one red, one white. A small plaque read, Reserved for Heroes in memory of Sergeant Miguel Martinez and Richard Harrington. James touched the plaque, felt the particular ache of complicated grief. Sarah entered off her shift, sat across from him. Busy day. Saved 3 lives, lost 1. Typical. They talked about nothing important, whether hospital politics, whether the Harley James finally fixed would make it another 1,000 miles. Marcus joined them after his shift, now working out of the FBI field office in Helena, commuting 3 hours each way, but doing it because the work mattered. Rev appeared with 10 other riders back in town for another fundraiser, another cause, another person who needed help. The diner filled with laughter and conversation and the particular warmth of people who'd been through fire together. James looked around the table, these people who'd become family through crisis, and felt something he hadn't felt in 18 years. Home. Not a place. People. At closing, Lily approached with her sketchbook. I drew something for you, she showed him. The drawing depicted everyone at Table 9, James, Sarah, Marcus, Rev, Rosa, Kyle, all of them together, all of them home. This is beautiful, James said. It's us. Family. We're not, you said family is who shows up. Everyone here showed up. James pulled her into a hug, felt her small arms wrap around his neck. Yeah, I guess we are. That night, James stood outside the garage under stars, breathing cold September air, feeling the weight of 18 years slowly lifting. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. He almost deleted it, then read it. Mr. Morrison, this is Lily. I borrowed Mama's phone. Thank you for keeping your promise. All of them. Lily, P.S. attached a photo of the Bronze Star medal still hanging around her neck on that shoelace. James saved the photo, put his phone away, looked up at stars wheeling in their ancient patterns. Danny Chen's face appeared in his mind, not tortured, not dying, but smiling the way he'd looked in that group photo from Iraq. I kept trying, James whispered to the stars. Like you said, keep trying, keep showing up. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of sage and motor oil and coffee from the diner. Smelling like home, James walked inside, climbed the stairs to his apartment, lay down in bed without turning on lights. For the first time in 18 years, he slept without ghosts. 5 years later, Main Street, Pinewood, Montana. September. Morning, sunlight the color of honey. The town had changed. Population sign now read, Pinewood, Pop, 9 and 200, growing daily. New businesses lined the street: coffee shop, bookstore, children's clothing boutique. The mining museum had reopened, funded by a grant Rosa had helped write. And Rosa's table expanded, renovated, thriving, sat at the center of it all. Inside, the morning rush was in full swing. Lily Martinez, now 15, worked the counter with practiced efficiency, dark hair still in practical braids, Marine's jacket still worn despite being more patches than original fabric now. Around her neck, Danny Chen's Bronze Star medal on a silver chain she'd bought with her first paycheck. Kyle Harrington, 22, managed the floor, greeting regulars by name, treating everyone from construction workers to lawyers with the same genuine respect. The entitled boy had been burned away in fire. What remained was better. Rosa moved through the kitchen, still the heart of the operation, though she'd hired a sous chef to handle the heavy lifting. She was healthy, strong, living. Table 9 remained reserved. 3 roses, now red, white, and blue. The plaque had been updated, reserved for heroes, in memory of Sergeant Miguel Martinez, USMC Corporal Daniel Chen, USMC Richard Harrington, redeemed. Richard had died 3 years after the mining facility's shooting complications from the knife wound that never fully healed. But he'd lived long enough to see the changes he'd funded take root, long enough to be proud of his son, long enough to make peace. The door jingled. James Morrison, now 73, walked in. Gray had turned to white, but his step remained steady, eyes still clear. Behind him, 3,000 motorcycles. The annual Brotherhood ride had grown exponentially. What started as 2,000 veterans had become a movement, chapters from 42 states all converging on Pinewood, one weekend each September. Rev, now 77, moving slower but still commanding, embraced James. Another year, preacher. Another year. Sarah Chen Morrison entered behind them, wedding ring glinting. They'd married 2 years ago in a small ceremony attended by everyone at Table 9. Marcus Hill followed, now Assistant Special Agent in Charge, FBI Anti-Cartel Division, based in Helena but keeping a small apartment in Pinewood because some places held your heart hostage. He came alone today. His daughter Sophie, healthy now, was away at Montana State studying veterinary medicine. Dreams financed by the Rosa Martinez Scholarship Fund, which had sent 43 Pinewood kids to college in 5 years. Lily saw James, broke into a smile that transformed her from capable teenager to the 10-year-old he'd first knelt beside. Grandpa? She'd started calling him that a year ago, when Rosa had laughingly said James was around so much he might as well be family. The name stuck. James didn't mind. Lily poured coffee without asking. He took it, black always had, and slid a plate across the counter. Made your favorite. Eggs, bacon, wheat toast. You're spoiling me. Someone has to. Rosa emerged from the kitchen, embraced James with warmth that had long since evolved past gratitude into something deeper. Every year you show up. Every year I think maybe this time you'll forget. Never. Kyle approached, shook James's hand, firm grip, eye contact, the handshake of someone who'd learned respect the hard way. Mr. Morrison, good to see you. Kyle, how's business? Good. Great, actually. We're opening a second location in Helena next month. Your father would be proud. Kyle's expression flickered, grief never fully faded, just learned to coexist with joy. I hope so, trying to make sure of it. The diner filled steadily as the Brotherhood arrived. Veterans from every era, every war, every background, all united by the understanding that service meant something even when the served forgot to be grateful. At 10 a.m. a ceremony began outside. The new mayor elected on a platform of workers' rights and healthcare access stood at a podium. 5 years ago, this town learned what brotherhood means. What it means when people refuse to look away. Today, I'm proud to announce that Montana has passed the Rosa Martinez Healthcare Act, guaranteeing emergency medical care for all residents, regardless of ability to pay. Applause. The bill had taken 3 years of lobbying, but it had passed. Systemic change, real change. Rosa stood at the podium, Lily beside her. We're not special. We're just people who got lucky that someone showed up. That's all any of us need. Someone willing to show up when it matters. More applause. Lily stepped to the microphone. She was 15 now, but in her voice lived something older. The weight of loss transformed into purpose. My father died in Afghanistan, protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. James Morrison taught me that's what heroes do. But heroes aren't special. They're just people who choose to care. Anyone can be a hero. You just have to show up. She pulled something from her pocket, Danny Chen's Bronze Star Medal. This belonged to Corporal Daniel Chen. He died 18 years ago in Iraq. James gave it to me when I was 10 because he said I reminded him of Danny. Brave when it matters. She looked directly at James in the crowd. I'm donating this medal to the Pinewood Veterans Museum. Not to hide it away, but to remind everyone who sees it, some debts can only be paid forward. James felt his throat tighten. Sarah squeezed his hand. After the ceremony, James sat at table 9 with everyone who mattered. Rosa Lily, Sarah Marcus, Rev Kyle. Not family by blood. Family by choice. Family by fire. They talked about nothing important in weather gossip, whether the Harley James had owned for 38 years would finally retire. Laughter filled the spaces between words. At closing, Lily approached with her sketchbook. She'd never stopped drawing, never stopped capturing moments in graphite and memory. I made something for all of us. She showed them. The drawing depicted this moment, all of them at table 9 together home. In the corner, sketched lightly 12 faces. The men James had lost in Iraq. Watching over them, smiling. James's eyes went wet. It's perfect. It's us, Lily said, past and present, everyone who brought us here. That night, James and Sarah walked back to the small house they'd bought on the north edge of town. Mortgage paid off, garden growing, 2 bedrooms in case anyone needed to stay. Sarah went inside. James stood in the yard looking up at stars. His phone buzzed. A message in the family group chat Lily had created. Lily, thank you for being our family. Love you all, Marcus. Love you too, kid. Proud of you. Rev. Brotherhood means nobody gets left behind. Not then, not now, not ever. Kyle. Grateful for second chances. For all of you. Rosa. My beautiful family. Mi familia del corazón. James typed, some debts can only be paid forward. Thank you for letting me try. He put his phone away, looked up at stars wheeling in patterns unchanged since humans first learned to wonder. Danny Chen's face appeared in his mind, not haunted, not accusatory, but peaceful. Proud. I kept going, James whispered. Like you said, I kept showing up. The wind carried the smell of sage and motor oil and Rosa's coffee. The smell of home. James walked inside, found Sarah reading in bed. He climbed in beside her, pulled her close. Good day, she asked. The best. Think you'll finally retire that Harley? Maybe. Or maybe ride another 1,000 miles. With me. Always with you. They lay in comfortable silence as night deepened outside. Somewhere in Pinewood, 12 graves held 12 bodies. But here in this house, in this town, in these people who'd chosen each other, they lived. All of them, through every life saved, every hand extended, every moment of showing up when it mattered. They lived, and maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. James closed his eyes. For the first time in 18 years, he slept without ghosts. Because the past doesn't die. It waits for someone brave enough to turn it into something beautiful. And James Morrison, 73 years old, former Marine, former ghost, had finally learned how.